Hi, everyone, and this is Scarlett Johnson with Unleashed, presented by Moms for Liberty, and I'm bringing back Siena Rose. Siena Rose, we had a great conversation, so great that I wanted to do an addendum. I wanted to talk about some articles that were released right after our last conversation that we had when I was in DC. So we're going to add on some bonus content to our interview because I thought what you wrote was so important. And our CEO, Tina Deskovich, even reposted it because she saw the same thing that I saw, that this was important. This was something we should talk more about. And what I'm discussing is you have an article where you talked about the new ideological battle emerging in America's classrooms, and that's the socialist red wave. And you pointed out this article, Why Socialists Should Become Educators. So I want you to tell us more about this. This was a publication of the Democratic Socialist Labor Committee and the Young Democratic Socialists of America. So I want you to explain how you found this and why you think it's relevant.
Thank you, Scarlett. Well, initially, I found this article because democratic socialism has been coming up a lot in conversation around American culture and elections recently. And so looking into it, initially, one of the first things we saw was actually this different manifesto of sorts that the Democratic Socialists put out that was about, it was titled Workers Deserve More, and it was a similar co-opting of labor movement issues to try and insert themselves into the narrative. So we actually did a whole commentary on that, and then looking deeper, I found this one on why socialists should become teachers, which I thought was so out of touch, and I almost couldn't believe it when I initially saw it. And then, of course, it's right along with what we would expect from them. But this sort of thing is important because, as you know, my work deals a lot with looking at teachers' unions and the ideological influences that they will push into classrooms. And looking deeper, yes, the Democratic Socialists posted a manifesto that talked about why socialists specifically should become teachers and put themselves in the way of becoming or doing jobs that would get them right in the line of sight with children, to talk to young people that are impressionable. But also, when you look behind the scenes at where the money is going and what curriculum is being backed, the teachers' unions are right along there with them. And so it's concerning, to say the least, to note that teachers' unions and government unions in America are combining forces with the Democratic Socialists to change the conversation and to change what's happening in classrooms. So that's why I thought it was important, and that's why we ended up talking about it.
Yes, and so I'm reading a direct quote. It says, still, for many people, the rewards of teaching outweigh the drawbacks. It's likely you have had at least one teacher who shaped your perspective, changed your world for you, or inspired you. You could be that person for your students. And then going down, you may even have the opportunity to teach about social justice and liberation history. And crucially, for organizers, your political work doesn't end at the classroom door. Your interactions and shared struggle with coworkers can be just as fulfilling. Mm-hmm. So that's scary to me. That's radical, but they're telling teachers, you can be the person that shapes these young minds. You are the person that can influence them. You are the person that can radicalize them. And not only that, you can radicalize your coworkers too. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we see happening. That's the big problem that we have in education in America.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's frustrating on one hand, because I think something that the Democratic Socialists correctly identify here is that teachers play an incredibly important role in the classroom. I mean, when I was growing up, I can think of so many teachers who made such a big impact on me and how they cared for me and how they invited me to find a love of learning and a love of reading. Like, I love classic epics like Beowulf now because of the teachers that I had. Yeah. And that's a beautiful opportunity that good teachers have to be in their children's and their students' lives. However, the Democratic Socialists see that and they say, actually, instead of encouraging your children to be upright moral citizens, you should encourage them to look into socialism and to adopt these socialist ideas and to, go to No Kings rallies and go to May Day protests and go to all of these things that are fundamentally degrading the capitalist values that are in America and the, general Christian values that are in America. They're really targeting these things that have brought our country to where it is after 250 years. And it's tough. I mean, it's really, really concerning. I'm glad people are talking about it now more. I mean, I'm not the first person to post about this article or this manifesto from the DSA. More and more folks are catching on that this is not just a fringe issue. This is a very real, very present thing that we are seeing in the classrooms, that we are now seeing the product of students who have been steeped in this socialist rhetoric for 5-10 years. Now we're actually seeing what's being produced from it.
And this is also leading to a rise in anti-Semitism, which is deeply concerning for you and for me. I know you're right about it a lot online. And I think just a few years ago, after October 7th, then you saw what was happening and people were addressing it more. But now I don't think people are talking about it enough. The radicalization on campuses is these radical groups, they identify as queer, they're environmental extremists. They free Palestine. All of these sort of far left groups are coming together to make this one very toxic stew, and they're sharing their beliefs with young kids, younger and younger, but they're radicalizing them very young. And what's happening is they literally are turning kids against, hard to believe it, but against the whole state of Israel. And I think it's leading to rampant anti-Semitism.
Yes, I mean, I've seen that a little bit in my work as well. A few weeks ago, I got to interview one of our plaintiffs. His name is Barry Bliston. He's a teacher in Los Angeles, and his union that he is kind of related to, that this lawsuit we're having right now is related to, is the United Teachers of Los Angeles. And it's exactly what you said. They're exposing these anti-Semitic ideas and talking points to younger and younger children. Barry, in our interview, he mentioned that there's kids who are, I don't know, like 4th or 5th grade, who make comments that are really vile and anti-Semitic and terrible. And he's like, who are you hearing this from? You're probably not hearing it from your parents. You're hearing it from the teachers who are with the teachers union, who are jamming this rhetoric down your throats and putting like Free Palestine signs everywhere. And the NEA sent that very infamous email, I believe last year, where they posted a map of that area, and they erased Israel. They just said like the state of Palestine. And it's like, you have teachers in your union who are Jewish. Like, what are we doing here, that we're catering to one minority versus the other? Like, we're catering to Black Lives Matter, but we're not catering to this attack on Israel. Yeah. It really logically makes no sense. But I mean, something that I see in the unions all the time is that they don't have a lot of common sense ideas. They go for the most radical because these social justice talking points is what gets them the most clicks. Yep. And I mean, Libs of TikTok just posted something where Moms for Liberty got a shout out from Mark Meadows. Thank you, Mark Meadows, where he said he was grateful for Moms for Liberty for kind of being an antidote to what's happening in schools. And thankful to you all, Freedom Foundation and teachers, the group that you're starting to help teachers escape these teachers unions. But Libs of TikTok posted a video that was from March, I believe, of kids, really young kids, in a JFK middle school in Massachusetts, holding up signs protesting Citizens Bank. They didn't know what they were doing. A lot of the kids were kind of twirling around, looking around, kind of bored. And then some kids had little prepared speeches where they're talking these socialist kind of talking points against a bank that had the audacity to work with ICE. And it's shocking to watch this kind of radicalization and watch these little kids. And I can't help but be reminded of images I've seen of Maoist China and Stalinist Russia, where kids were used as tools of propaganda. Precisely. That's exactly right. Kids are being used as propaganda. They're being used as these foot soldiers in the ideological battle. I've said that before. I think I've written that exact phrase before, because it's not just a quick thing to say. It's absolutely true. And it's terrible that this is part of the public school system, that its taxpayer dollar is being used to fund these things. I mean, the teachers unions, when you draw all the money back to where it comes from taxpayer money that they're being funded to, and they're using this money not to actually take care of the best interests of education or to promote curriculum that is beneficial and focuses on the basic things that kids need to learn, but they're using it to take kids out of class to go to May Day rallies. I mean, I told you at the May Day rally, I saw a whole gaggle of like 2nd graders come in with their teachers, and they don't know what's going on. These are kids. We don't need to dumb down these ideological issues and these social justice issues for kids to understand. Just let them be kids. I don't know why that became so ridiculous to say. No, and right, left, I don't want kids
be taken from classrooms and going to any sort of political rallies. Just period. None. No politics. If they're in high school and there's debate club or they're in government, then obviously there's a place to talk about politics in a way that's even and fair. And the teacher, none of the kids should know your political values. If you're a teacher, they should always be wondering. This class, he's sort of he talks more like a conservative. The next class, he would talk more progressive. The goal always, a good teacher, to make sure you're stimulating ideas and letting the kids form their own thoughts and opinions, and not inserting those thoughts and opinions in their brains for them. Yet that is exactly what this manifesto states, and it cites Paulo Freire, who was a communist admired by Mao, admired by Castro, and he wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is, I believe, the most cited work in teachers' colleges. And so I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
Well, I did a little bit of digging on him because the name was familiar when I read the manifesto. And I mean, the quote that they chose to pull, like you said, the educator has the duty of not being neutral. I was shocked that was something that, is being quoted and is being referenced as a talking point that is, to be uplifted. I was just like, what do you mean the educator has a duty to not be neutral? That seems completely backwards. But the issue it comes down to is that the Democratic Socialists think that the way that America is being run is not good enough, and nothing is leftist or radical enough for them. And so they're looking, in their Workers Deserve More manifesto, they talked about wanting to basically burn the establishment down and start up something else and change around the powers so that the branches of government no longer hold each other equal, but there's one that rises above the rest. And it's like, this is really concerning, that this is eventually their end goal, and they're using these little pieces like getting more socialists into education positions to advance to get to that big goal, which is to create a democratic socialist republic in America, which would give, unions more power. I'm not sure if you've read that manifesto, The Workers Deserve More, but it is very interesting too.
Oh, I haven't read that yet. I need to read that. And the Western tradition is neutrality. It's sort of the Socratic method, that the teacher should stand before the students as they get older. Early on, you're teaching them to read, you're teaching them math, you're teaching them phonics. You're so busy with that you should not be looking at them as little empty brains so that you can impart all of your politics and ideology into them. And that's why such care and concern should go into the materials that they read, because they should be neutral. They should be neutral materials that don't have an agenda and that are patriotic. Because early on, we're trying to raise a generation of citizenry that start to understand the American Constitution, American values, American politics, family life, all of that stuff, just simple, basic. And then as the kids progress in age, then the teacher has a different role. But the Western tradition is the teacher stands before them kind of in this neutral way, always getting them to think. Whenever they take a stand, challenge that stand. Like, I went to law school. You always had to be on your toes, because if you took a position, the professor is supposed to make sure you can argue the other side. And by doing that, you should be able to, you come up with your own thoughts and beliefs, and then you strengthen them because you understand all of the sides of an issue. And I think then you're more tolerant, you're more empathetic, you're more able to debate and let us reason together. That's the Western tradition. This communist socialist tradition is, come let us impart our knowledge into you. And that's the only thing that you can ever believe. They are comfortable with the word indoctrination or imposing. That's another. John Dewey said, impose upon the children your values. And we should reject that.
I agree. Like I said before, I'm certainly grateful that there's more conversation happening around these things, but I would love to say that these topics that we're seeing come up are warning shots, but they're less of a warning and more of a aftertaste. Like we're seeing the effects and the influence of these things has already happened in education. What we're trying to do now is actively move against it so that it doesn't get worse, and to also reverse the effects as much as we can. But like I said earlier, we've seen the rise of democratic socialism. I mean, there was a poll, I just read this, I think a Gallup poll from 2025, where it showed more people, in comparison to maybe 10 years ago, people are less favoring capitalism and more favoring socialism. Like, so the views of capitalism is going down and the views in socialism are going up, and it's because of the recurring effects of these things. And something I'm grateful for, though, is that the reason why the Teacher Freedom Alliance was brought and created, going to promote TFA real quick here because our conference is coming up soon. But TFA's whole mission is to provide curriculum and support teachers to help develop free, upright, moral citizens, in a direct antithesis to what the current government teachers unions are doing, and saying that we're going to tell you what to believe. We're not going to teach you how to think, but we're just going to tell you what to believe and believe that it's important. Rather than what TFA believes, and what we're trying to help educators do, is create, again, those free, moral, and upright citizens who can think, who are critical thinkers, who are reasonable and rational, and are able to think through these big concepts and not just be more inclined to just take whatever the media or whatever socialists say to them. Yeah.
And I have a quote from Aaron White, the CEO, where he says, "I fled dead-end socialism in England for the American dream. Now public unions are trying to turn America into the place that I escaped." I think his sentiments reflect the views of many lawful immigrants. I know in my community, we have many adults who escaped as children. They escaped Soviet Union, their families, and they're terrified. That's why there are fiercest fighters for school boards, for protections. They understand what that education looks like because they escaped it, even though they were very young. They remember and they know the stories that their parents and grandparents told them. They came here for a better life, and now they're watching that there are leaders, these socialist leaders, that are trying to bring a failed system, revive it right here in America, and too many are falling for it. And I believe it's because they've been indoctrinated at such a young age, and it's hard to unwind what has been implanted in a child's mind very young.
What's fascinating, though, about that quote is that Aaron, he'll talk about frequently that he has come from a socialist country, that like England is a socialist nation. And I sat down with him for an interview several months ago in November, December of 2025, and we talked about it. And I asked him, like, the question that a lot of people will ask him is like, why did you come from America? Like, if you're from England, you came all the way over here, and now you lead a great nonprofit that works for American citizens. What made you come over here? And he says, well, it's because in a socialist nation, in a socialist country, like, you have no opportunity to grow. You have no opportunity to work for what's better. Like, people seem to forget that socialism it's not the party of the working class. Communism is not the party of the working class. When you're in a socialist or communist country, everything you do and everything you work for belongs to the state. So you can't work for a better life. And that's why Aaron came to America. He's like, I have the opportunity to work for a better life. I can be a hard worker. I can get raises. I can provide for my family. I can provide for everything as a worker because a capitalist system affords that. It drives me crazy, Scarlett, that people are like, communism is the working class. No, it's not. No. It's not for the working class. Not at all.
Nope, it's not. It's not even. And England, you would think, well, they're not Maoist China. I have family members that were just in Spain, and the same thing, the lack of opportunity, the class that you're born in is the class you'll die in. There's no upward mobility. If your family were butchers, that's likely what you're going to do. Farmers will be farmers. Like there's nowhere to go. And freedom of speech doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. You are not free to speak your mind about your political leaders. Maybe now you say maybe it's not as bad as China, but I wouldn't want to be, well, we're not as bad as China. That's not a good thing. I think it's pretty great to be in America. Another thing, the options that we have, even at the grocery store, the options, the restaurants we can go to, the choices that we can make, we take it for granted. And I want, yes, I want our markets to be freer. I would like to see more free market, less government intrusion. There's too much in America already. These people, these Democratic Socialists, they want more. They want to double down. And I don't even, my mind can't comprehend it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, this is something that Aaron is a really great bank of information on, because he can speak to the specifics of what it was like to grow up and live in a socialist area. I mean, lots of his, I believe, like friends, and because they grew up over there, still live over there. And I believe a few times he has talked about on my podcast in the episode, he talked about the differences in what their life is like over there under a socialist regime, if you will, and what his life is like over here, and how America is really the land of the free. And that's something to be protected. That's something to be protected when it comes to education and caring for our children as well.
Now I'm going to talk. So this was written, Why Socialists Should Become Teachers, in 2018. So they've all become so much more radical. This is their light now, because I think that they've gone off the deep end now. I can't believe that they were saying this in 2018. But then I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't until COVID that I was really woken up to what's going on in education. I had a sense that there was something off. I had pulled some of my kids out of public school and put them in private schools when they were younger. But I thought, well, it's not that bad. But it really is. The DSA puts it in writing. This is a quote: a pamphlet still on their own website, and you wrote this, arguing socialists should become teachers because of the political, economic, and social potential of the job. They call for building a militant minority inside the unions. They credit socialist organizing for the West Virginia strike. Can you talk more about that? I mean, a militant minority, this is, so they called for this in 2018. It happened, because we're seeing it right now. So it did come to pass.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about the time frame, I would imagine that they probably published this manifesto right at the height of some other big scandals. So they slipped it into their publishing when no one else was really going to notice, because there was something else going on, and people that cared noticed it, and obviously have carried that with them and implemented what the pamphlet offered. But I believe that section that you just read, it talks about the importance of, and if you read farther down, it talks about the importance of infiltrating unions, because it makes a big effort and emphasis on infiltrating the working class and infiltrating unions, specifically government unions, because it talks about that. I believe that it takes the work off of the Democratic Socialists, because they can already infiltrate an existing union. And then it really is just, it's kind of an upsetting thing to read, but it talks about, don't come right out and be super socialist. You have to gain these people's trust. You have to work beside them, be prepared to have a years-long affair in working to build these people's trust in you and to get them to know you. And then you can advance to higher positions. And that's how our socialist cause will be advanced, and that's how we'll grow more comrades. It's bizarre to read. I'm like, this feels like a dystopian affair that they're talking about, but that's what they actually did. They infiltrated unions. They infiltrated trusted, working class institutions. And I mean, unions, traditionally, looking at the history, people have trusted them, whether or not that's been for a good purpose. Unions have been trusted. Democratic Socialists infiltrated those, used that for their purposes, created a whole militant class of socialists and communists in some sense too. And now those people are getting elected, and we're seeing these democratic organizations back politicians that will further their agenda once they get into office. It's really such a deep dive.
Wow. And I know I'm going to be reaching out probably today to our mutual friend, Natalia, because I want to get into a deep dive of Democratic Socialists. And she lives in New York. She knows, and she knows a lot of people, professors, a lot of great people that really understand this. So I think it's something we need to really investigate. So they quote, we talked about this, but Paulo Freire, the educator has the duty to not be neutral. So just please, Paulo Freire, look him up and you'll see. I mean, this is what my friend James Lindsay will tell you. He knows all about Paulo Freire. He talks about it all the time, but this is like the godfather of this sort of radical education, telling the educator, you have to be the activist, like you're the change agent, it's up to you to be the change. And this force for good, you need to save America from capitalism. And oddly enough, I did a little research and found, because someone posted under your initial post, someone posted a pamphlet from the 1930s, and I found it interesting. So I looked into it, and what do you know? There was John Dewey and this group of intellectuals that were trying to do this in the 30s. They were unsuccessful. You can imagine World War II, having just fought and defeated socialism, and now we're start this whole the war with the Soviet Union and the Cold War. It wasn't very popular, but it didn't die. It just went into teachers' colleges like Columbia, Stanford, all of these elite, Harvard, and they went into the halls of academia, and these ideas thrived, and they reared their ugly head again in the 60s and 70s.
And when you talk with Natalia, I adore her and her work. I think she is so fantastic, and she knows so much about Democratic Socialists. And I published an op-ed about how the socialists are coming for the elderly area, the retirees of America. And she helped me kind of look into some details about that. So she is fantastic.
They're coming young and the elderly.
Yes, the young and the old, the bookends of society, if you will.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to target one demographic, elderly, they vote. They are the most consistent voters. You know, they make it out there. And when parties, lots of times retired, a little bit more elderly, they have the time, and they run the parties because they can be volunteers and they enjoy doing it, and it's kind of a social thing. So if you could radicalize that group, this consistent voting block, boy, that's trouble.
It is trouble. I mean, something that I think about a lot, just in the general regards to this democratic socialist conversation, is just how disillusioned people are. Because I think an argument that I hear that's coming from the democratic socialists is, or, if there's a debate going on, that they're like, oh, why don't you go to Cuba or some other socialist or communist country? And the response is that, oh, they're not doing communism or socialism right. It's like the no true Scotsman debate. It's like, what do you mean they're not doing it right? What does right mean? So you think that suddenly in a nation where we haven't done capitalism correctly, that we'll be able to do socialism 100% correctly? No. Like, let's be logical about this.
They always say that. Well, we would do it differently. They've just not done it right.
They've just not done it right.
The hundreds of millions that have perished because of socialism and communism, well, they did it wrong. We'll do it so much better. But they can't tell you quite how. It's the ... Then we've got utopia. Have the revolution ... perfect society, nirvana. But they can never tell you ... What does that mean? What does it take to get there? But we talked about roadmap to the revolution before, and this is exactly what they were talking about. And Becky Pringle, NEA president, was on this call. There were children on this call. There were teachers on this call, teachers who were unionized teachers that were talking about how they had infiltrated and how they were using all of these tools that were being provided by a group called Indivisible. All of these tools in order to radicalize and wake up teachers, and to wake up, basically to bring children into this movement as well, to wake up the children who could then go radicalize their parents and their peers. And these were topics I've sat through, and your organization, I think you guys and us, we were posting all sorts of clips from these anti-ICE training sessions. And I wish they had gotten a little bit more traction, because right there, we were watching the groundwork that they're laying for what they call the revolution. And they have a timeline that goes to, I believe they said by 2037, they want to see, they want to have control over the Democrat Party. See, this isn't just about taking out Trump. That's the first. They want to take out the Democratic Party as it stands right now, because they think that they're not radical enough. They think that they're just a bunch of capitalists and who care more about the billionaires than about everyone else. Never mind that all of these groups are funded by billionaires, lots of them outside of America, but they are funded with money that from the billionaires. I guess those are the good ones. But I don't even where I'm going with this, but it's just a big problem. It's a really big problem, and I think more people need to wake up to where it stems from and how deep the rat goes.
I agree. I find it utterly depraved, the actions of the union leaders, like you said, Becky Pringle, who will put their full force and their whole union's force behind promoting these things like the roadmap to political revolution. And I mean, statistically, there's no way that 100% of her members or any union's members can fully get behind what their union leader is doing. I think that's a really evil misrepresentation of member interests, and of course then member money goes into that too, which is why Freedom Foundation does so much opt-out work to help teachers remember that, like, hey, you have options. You don't need to support these people. You don't need to back them if you don't want to. We actually recently just filed 36 unfair labor practice complaints in California, where we like go through 36 different stories from 36 different workers who came forward and said, hey, our unions mistreated us because they were so desperate to get our name and our money. There's a story of a young woman who was literally locked in a room where her teacher union representative wouldn't let her leave until she signed a membership card. There's another one that's even more egregious, where a young woman got her membership card in the mail, signed, wrote down on the signature line, said, I do not want to be a part of the union. And the union counted that as her signature and started deducting dues. It's just depraved. It's almost comical because in another world, I probably wouldn't even believe that that's happening, but it is happening because they're desperate. They're desperate for money. They're desperate for this influence. They're desperate for the power that they have right now. And they're doing anything they can to hold on to it, even mistreating average, everyday, hardworking, good Americans who just want to do their job.
Yes. And I think there are so many teachers that retire early. I am friends with many of them. They're very good teachers, the best. And even at 16 years, 17 years, 18 years, they just decide, you know what, we can live off my husband's income. I'm going to retire early, or I'll retire early and work in a private school, or I'll just, I will be a tutor or something like that. So we don't even know how many good teachers we've lost in public education, because rather than deal and fight this sort of radicalism, they've just said, I've had enough. Now, a lot of them retired before there were organizations like yours, and that's why I think it's really important, because if they could have another option, if they could be able to organize and meet like-minded teachers instead of the secret handshake or the maybe. And teachers have told me this. They'll hear someone talk and they'll think, wait a second, is it one of us? And they'll probe, and then finally they talk and they realize they found each other. Oh my gosh, we think alike, and they think it's a miracle, because it's so hard. They have to keep so many things about themselves very private, so no one knows their beliefs. Yet another group, they're walking around like with Handmaid's Tale costumes throughout this, walking through the school, and AOC t-shirts, and they feel perfectly comfortable politicizing their classrooms and kind of suppressing the free speech of others. And that's not fair. That's not right. And they need a place to go, and we need lawyers to defend them. And I'm glad your organization is giving them another option as far as unions. And now there's other organizations that are saying, hey, we'll take your case. And they're winning a lot. These cases where teachers are suing because they were placed on leave, they were fired, or their speech was suppressed, they're winning. And we need more of that, so that districts, the only thing they're going to listen to the language of money. And when they lose money, then they're going to change some of their policies. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's very encouraging seeing some movement being made to support these teachers. But I think you make a good point that a lot of folks who don't agree with the union, they have to kind of be on their tiptoes about, oh, do you agree with me? And that's completely unacceptable, especially unacceptable that these are common sense ideas that are now becoming the minority in education because of the influence of very radical organizations like the teachers unions. I mean, no teacher should feel ostracized for what they believe, and their political beliefs should not be as part of the classroom because it's based in education. I mean, these are things that we see and we talk about every day at Freedom Foundation. But the 36 unfair labor practice complaints are very interesting. I think we have them all listed on our filing. But it's absurd. All 36, it's like no one should be treated like this, much less by a government union.
And that's at one state. Now imagine you were in Chicago. Imagine what happens to teachers in Chicago. I would think that a great many teachers, particularly Black and Hispanic teachers that teach in these inner cities, didn't think it was appropriate for them to cancel classes so that the kids could go protest. I would imagine a lot of them didn't agree with that. They don't have to agree with me or you. They don't have to like Trump, but a common sense person that cares about the education of these kids, particularly kids that are, in some of the poorest areas of Illinois, of Chicago, they want these kids to be educated. I saw interviews where teachers were saying, hey, we have SATs, we have ACT tests on what I think May 5th. If they skip school, they're not going to have some of the prep work that they need to be fully prepared to take these tests, which will determine their fate in college. So there were people speaking up, and they were not conservatives that didn't agree with this, but their voice gets lost.
Yeah, it's a shame that, like you said, the common sense understanding of what should have been surrounding that event was completely lost in the rabble. May Day was just an absurd slew of events. I mean, I was thinking about, you mentioned the handmaids. There was a woman who was at one of the event protests who was actually dressed as a handmaid. I tried to get her to speak on camera and she wouldn't do it. But I was like, this is a bold stance to be taking at a labor rally, no less. But then, I mean, that goes to show that the rally was not all about labor or workers' rights. It was for every other political movement that the union wanted to tap into.
Yes, I was at the May Day in DC, which was largely free Palestine. It was pretty much, and I was like, isn't this about, yeah, you'd think it's also something else, but it was largely kind of a free Palestine, anti-ICE. There were some children, not as many as like a lot of college students, but it was a lot about anti-ICE, free Palestine. Then a lot of, I think, what it's a boomer white women with anti-Trump and very vile. Like I told you, I couldn't air. I was recording a lot of this with my friend Bill. We couldn't air most of it. There were swear words. It was inappropriate. We're Moms for Liberty. We try and keep it PG. And this was rated R to rated X stuff, but a little bit shocking. So it wasn't a place for kids, and yet kids were encouraged to come. And I think it's the same in Chicago. It was not a place to bring children. Even if you would want your child to engage in political protest, and if you're a parent, that's up to you. But this is not a place where I would bring children because of the chants that they were making, the signs they were holding, the really highly sexualized statements and outfits that people were wearing. It was not appropriate for children. And that's a consistent theme with these far left endeavors.
Yes, it is. Yeah, nothing is ever really what they do is appropriate for the kids to be around. It's crazy. I mean, if there's someone like listening who's hearing this for the first time, I think what's important to know is that the Democratic Socialists are, like you said, nothing is like far left enough for them. They need to be more radical. The basic Democrat Party is not radical. It's not leftist enough for them. And the people that are helping them get this rhetoric into the media and into children's minds are the teachers unions, which is, a lot of people are surprised. I mean, trying to explain that to my own friends who are a little bit in the know because they understand what I do for work, it's like, oh, really? It's like, yes, these are people who have monumental amounts of influence, and they are committed to using that influence to get radical ideology into the classroom, not to actually represent their workers or do things that are in the best interests of America or American education.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So what are you working on now? What's going to be your next topic after 4th of July?
Yes, well, I think I'm working on another op-ed about, you guessed it, the Democratic Socialists of America with one of my coworkers. This is a really important talking point that I think we do want to capitalize on. And there are lots of links to many different parts of culture, not just the labor movement and the education movement, but it's a very important thing in general. Upcoming is our Teacher Freedom Summit in Dallas, Texas. That will be the third or fourth one, I believe. But we're very excited for this one. And we have a few speakers that have been announced, including, of course, our CEO, Ryan Walters of TFA. Additionally, my own podcast is coming up on its 50th episode,
Oh,
which is kind
wow.
of exciting. Yeah, it's already been 50 episodes. I was kind of shocked to see that number coming up, but just staying the course, staying focused on the mission, empowering employees, and helping inform people of their opt-out rights.
Yes. And where can people go to find out more information about the Teacher Freedom Summit?
They can go to teacherfreedomalliance.com. It's also at Teacher Freedom Alliance on Instagram and Facebook, I believe, and then at Freedom for Teachers on X. They post regularly and have a lot of great information about the conference if they would like to attend. I believe signups may be, I think by the time this airs, it might have been closed, but we'll be posting lots of the stuff on our website, talking about speakers and posting things. So people can stay up to date about the conference and what's going on, even if they aren't in attendance.
Yes, and usually after the conference, you'll have lots of clips and lots of access people can watch and they can learn more.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be hosting some interviews in person as well. So if people are curious, they can come to the Freedom Foundation channels and watch some interviews with speakers. So very excited for all of that. I love the Teacher Freedom Summit. I've gone the past 2 times and it's been delightful.
Oh, that'll be great. I know my friend Kelly Shineski is going to be there. Corey DeAngelis, a lot of great people, include Ryan, who I love. I have to get him back on my podcast. He's great. He's always so much fun to talk to. He doesn't mince words when talking about the teachers unions.
Oh yes, he's very direct, and we love that.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Siena. I really am glad we got to discuss this a little bit more and add some bonus content to our already great interview. And I will be airing that tomorrow. So and everyone, like you're watching it right now, we're recording it, but be sure to share. If you like it, please share it and subscribe to our channel at Moms for Liberty, and can watch my podcast and watch Siena's podcast too. She's on 50, and time flies when you're having fun. It's so making
It
podcasts,
really does.
it's fun, and there's so many topics. Every time I think, what could I talk about next? It's so easy. There's something pops up, and there's another great subject, another great person to interview. So thank you so much, Siena, for making the time to talk before we all go on vacation and celebrate the 250th anniversary of America.
Yes, thank you so much, Scarlett.
Thanks. Bye. That was a great conversation and so relevant right now, because unless you've been living under a rock, you should know that the Democratic Socialists, they swept a lot of important primaries just last week, beating out Democrats that have held office, incumbents. And I sat through the roadmap to the revolution, part of the Sunrise Movement. They are not happy with Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. They think the Obamas are not radical enough. Believe it or not, they are not fans of the Clintons, the Obamas, Pelosi. They want to take over the Democratic Party, because if you don't understand, political science is my major. The founding American election system is built on a two-party system, and it's very difficult for a third party to do many of the functions that it needs to do in order to accrue and maintain power. Just the process of getting on a ballot, and it can be very cumbersome, and you need the whole the whole infrastructure that a party has. And we have two parties, Democrat, Republican. Yes, there's Libertarian, but they don't have the kind of infrastructure that really is necessary to build enough of a movement, a power base in order to really make a dent, make a change in the House, in the Senate. Or, even locally. But there's more of a chance that it's a little bit, maybe you could run as an independent and get a seat at the state level, but you notice that that doesn't happen very often, not even at the state level. So it's easier to take over an existing party. There are two. They are obviously going to take over the more progressive Democrat Party. And that's their goal. They want to take it over. And that way they don't need a third party. They should run as socialists. They're socialists. They're communists. But it's just too hard. They can't win. They can't win the sufficient majorities. They need to really move the needle. So they have infiltrated the Democrats. Communists have infiltrated the Democrat Party and they are taking it over. Now, why does that matter? You're talking about this on Moms for Liberty. It matters because these are the organizations that are operating at the school board level. They're operating at the state level because here in Wisconsin, we have Democratic Socialists that are running for and have won seats under the Democrat Party for assembly, for Senate. And now we even have someone running for governor that is an avowed Democratic Socialist, an alliance with the DSA party. We saw with Mandami in New York, and now that influence is spread. He won the mayor's race, and several of his advisors were on the calls that I attended. These with the Sunrise Movement, the Road to Revolution, working with Indivisible. So some of the people that were responsible for Mandami's win are advisors to these organizations, or now they work within these organizations. That's the way it works with campaign staff. They run a campaign wins. They could go on the staff of the candidate who won, or they start to work in an adjacent nonprofit group until the next campaign. And so the people that helped Mandami win, some of them are working for him now, and some of them are working in nonprofits where they are recruiting and training. They're recruiting candidates. They're recruiting more activists. They're training the activists. They're training the candidates. And then they're preparing for their revolution. They call it the roadmap to revolution. They are preparing for the revolution they want a revolution without any guns. They're going to take it over through the political process. And that's what they're attempting to do. So it's the school board level, the state level, mayor's races. They are going for local dog catcher. They want it all. They understand how important local elections are far more than conservatives do. Moms for Liberty is one of the few conservative organizations that operates at the local level that exclusively we endorse for school board races. We operate at the local level. We try to recruit and train candidates to run for school board. And we've had a lot of success, but there is not the investment into efforts like this that there needs to be. On the left, there is a lot of investment, a lot of resources that are poured into this plan. And on the right, this is a wake up call. Wake up. If you're watching this, wake up. And we need people to understand that it's not top down, it's bottom up. Bottom up always. Bottom up is the path to victory. We have to build up at the grassroots. We have to be able to identify candidates. We have to be able to recruit. We have to be able to train. We have to be able to inform and engage and empower. that's the way that you win. It's not going to be top down. It's going to be bottom up. But so this is why we're talking about this, because they have successfully infiltrated teachers unions. They have successfully infiltrated educational institutions and teachers colleges. They have been successful in this since the 30s, like I talked about with a pamphlet. I'll show you really fast. Let's pull that up. So here, this is what I was talking about. You can see the Social Frontier. It's a journal of educational criticism and reconstruction. Notice George here, George Quartz, I think his name is, or Counts. Let me look through my notes if I can. And then that's the editor, and you can see there's John Dewey. John Dewey, famous. He is a contributor, and so I did my research, and John Dewey contributed once a month, and he was a mentor to this editor, to this guy, George. And so what's interesting, George Count, that's what his name is, George Count. So you can, if you can read here that the journal, now in its third year, represents an attempt from within the ranks of teachers and academians to build a social philosophy and a plan of action that will make education a significant force in reconstructing American society on a non-profit basis. It's anti-capitalist, it's socialist. So that's very clear. And so I did my research into this group, and this was a 1930s ad copy. What was really interesting is that some of the other speeches and pamphlets that were written by George Count, one of which said, dare the school build a new social order. And one was indoctrination in education. And he said, I will not be afraid to say the word indoctrination. I mean, he believed, and he continued to write, that it was the role of the educator to indoctrinate students, to indoctrinate them into a collectivist worldview and a collectivist economic preference. He visited Russia in 1937 and 1935, and he had nothing but praise. He had nothing but praise for the Bolshevik system. He thought it was an ideal system that we should emulate. Okay. These are guys that this publication ran until, I believe, 1947. Their ideas were not popular. They were kind of run in to hide in the shadows. The majority of folks, of Americans, absolutely rejected the ideas, the open call for indoctrinating children and to be socialist, a call for educators to be collectivists and to view their role as a role of molding minds into a new pedagogy. And so this predates Pedagogy of the Oppressed and Paulo Freire. So John Dewey, who everyone like, oh, the father of American education, boy, that's kind of creepy that, that he espoused views that looked at public education as a way to indoctrinate kids into a very specific collectivist worldview, a socialist worldview, an admirer of Marx, and at least at one point, an admirer of the Bolshevik Revolution and of Russia as late as 1937. Now, were they unaware that they had starved and tortured tens of millions of people? Maybe they weren't, but I mean, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. So I think it's worth noting that Democratic Socialists have a tendency to admire absolute despots, murderers, pillagers, people that crush freedom and democracy. The minute they have the power, they claim to be fighting for democracy. Then when they get the power, they're afraid. They're afraid that there might be another group that will defeat them. And so they feel like, well, we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. And they crush all rebellions and become tyrants and dictators and totalitarians. This is the formula. You have these quasi-socialist societies in Europe. Yeah, they're not China or Russia, but they're not America. They don't have the freedom. They don't have the prosperity. Their children do not have the ability for upward mobility. It's very stagnant. So it is not something to emulate. And yet these are the people that are teaching our children. They are resentful of capitalism. They are resentful of America. They are thoroughly indoctrinated to believe America is evil. And they are encouraged to take their pedagogy and spread it. They are missionaries encouraged to spread the good word. They believe that they view their job, I think, much like a pastor, much like an evangelist, that they need to save. They need to save the kids. The parents are lost, but save the children. Teach them the good news of woke Marxism and make sure that they are in a perpetual state of repentance for all of their sins, and they're constantly atoning. And if they are Black and brown, that they are presumed victims. And it's very gross. It's very sad, but it's very much the truth. This public education is just, it's a mess. It's a real mess. And here, let's pull up another. So you can see the quote, we talked about this. I'll bring it up. The educator has the duty of not being neutral. Let's pull up, there's some more here. And you can see why socialists should become teachers. I'm going to bring that up. Hold on. So here we go. Why socialists should become teachers. So this is what we had been talking about and referencing. A few DSA members that were teachers in West Virginia public schools began having conversations about new austerity measures facing public employees. So you can see through this article. The pamphlet argues that socialists should take jobs as teachers and other school-based workers for political, economic, and social potential the industry holds. See the images. Teaching strategic. Socialists believe that workers create society's wealth and that the working class is the only class capable of governing society democratically. They're quoting Marx. This is what Marx called surplus value. Look at this. The rank and file strategy, building a socialist movement in the US. Kim Moody. I mean, wow. Wow. Education is a key sector. The reality of our political economy is that some groups of workers have more leverage than others to win political and economic demands. And then they mention the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. Every state has an affiliate of one of the two major unions. In many districts, there's already a structure to collective bargaining. They don't have to build from the ground up. Education, I mean, This is crazy. Anyway, this is I'll make sure I have this available, but it's right there. It's all right there. That's just one of the plans. And finally, because I always like to bring the receipts, I'm going to pull up a little bit of what we were talking about, the roadmap to the revolution. So here we go. So you can see I posted here. This is a multi-year plan. The issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. So this is the Sunrise Movement. I posted this January 28th, 2026. And you can see right here, our plan, phase 1, slow the authoritarians. 2028, electoral breakthrough. This is defeating President Trump and Republicans. 3, political revolution. This is taking over the Democratic Party. And then by 2032, the new system. That's the socialist system, Marxism. So that you could see the plan.
Actually, we need to turn that into the electoral power to actually kick him out in 2028. Because yes, the election may not be as free or as fair as we want it to be, but we also know that we need to show that majorities of people are against this regime, and we need to be able to vote Trump out. And when we do that, it is really important that we are able to keep that giant united coalition of groups that has come together to defeat Trump and actually turn it into structural political reforms that make this country fairer, that actually give everyday working people more power over our everyday lives. Because when our political system isn't working, when people don't have, actually, we need to turn that into the electoral power to actually kick him out.
So there you have it. That's just a little bit. That's a little bite-sized tidbit of the plan. And I've done some live streams about it, but as I said, in the coming weeks, I'm going to dig in and do more because I think we need to be aware of be prepared and aware of what's happening. You need to know your enemy, and we need to know that these forces are really, they're coming after parental rights. They're coming after parents who care. They are aligned with the radical transgender movement. They want disruption at every level. They want chaos and disruption. Chaos is a ladder. They want boys and girls bathrooms, boys and girls spaces. They really don't care about athletics because frankly, any type of real competition where there are winners and losers and zero-sum games, they don't like that. Mainly, in my opinion, because they're sort of weasels. They are resentful of people that achieve because they haven't achieved, and they need to blame somebody, so they blame a system. It's just, if you want to learn more about that, you need to read Ayn Rand, and she talks about it at length. The kinds of people that are attracted to Marxism and socialism, they make up very much cluster B personalities, and people that are resentful. And I'm talking about the diehard activists. I think there's a lot of people that they're good people. They're sensitive. When they're told things are unfair, they don't like it. They want things to be fair. But they are under the illusion that they can have the best of both worlds, that they can enjoy capitalism while thinking and voting and talking like a socialist. So they can act like capitalists. They can own property like capitalists. They can have great jobs. They can send their kids to great private schools. They can enjoy all the benefits of capitalism and private ownership and free markets and the ability to speak your mind and speak freely. They want to enjoy all the benefits of that while also being communists. And that doesn't go together. You can't have free markets, freedom of speech, and Republican democracy like we have now. You cannot have that. You cannot have a republic and also espouse beliefs that are communist. They don't go together. There's a group of capitalists and free market forces and entrepreneurs and people that are working hard, studying hard, attaining higher degrees to achieve the American dream and to live a certain more affluent life, a middle-class life. And then there are those that are what Ayn Rand would say, they're leeches. They leech on to people like that. They leech onto them and they suck them dry. They suck all the life out of them. And eventually, though, they run out of hosts. Atlas Shrugged. They run out of hosts. And then they have to find another host. And when that happens, then you see you become Venezuela. It's Cuba. They've sucked everything dry, and now all that's left are wealthy minority of brutal dictators and everyone else that has to live under this regime because there's a military class and there's a political class that absolutely holds everyone, the majority, they live in terror, and they are uneducated, and they don't have arms. They can't defend themselves, and voila. So this is what we're trying to avoid. So call to action, ending on a good note, fight this. Don't look at Mandami as a pest. Just a pest. Don't laugh. Don't underestimate this movement. Don't underestimate these people. Don't underestimate the connections that they have. Don't underestimate their revolution. They are in it for the long haul, and they play for keeps. We better be playing for keeps as well. And we need to really engage at the grassroots level, stay in the fight, recruit more, and we need to expand and grow and not retreat. Top down, no. Bottom up, yes. And so if you're watching this, you are narrow is the way. So you are part of an elite group of people that care, you're knowledgeable, you're being empowered. Now do some more research. You've seen a lot of terms, you have some things, you have some homework, look them up and see what does this look like in your community? What power does the NEA have? AFT, your teachers, even if like they're Wisconsin teachers unions that are small, they're affiliated with a larger teachers union. Who are your school board members? Get to know them. Who do they listen to? Who's in their ear talking? Your superintendent. State legislature, get to know who's representing you, who's funding them, how much, where do they get their money? Are these training sessions happening in your community, in your state? If so, infiltrate them and find out what they're doing and be ready to counter it, to fight back. These are not popular ideas. They say the quiet part out loud because we've got a mainstream media that won't tell the truth. As a matter of fact, let's see if I can get to it. I'm going to share one last screen right here. I didn't pull it up here. Let's pull it up. There we go. Now you can see. Okay, one last screen right here. So it says, CNN's Caitlin Collins, Democratic Socialism is not communism. DSA national leader David Jenkins says the quiet part out loud, our goal is communism. Our goal is communism. So Caitlin Collins reprimands President Trump. President Trump, the Democratic Socialists aren't communists. The DSA, yeah, we are. That's who we are. DSA is like, yep, we're communists. That's who we are. That's our goal. So the commies are coming. They're here. So as we celebrate 250 years of freedom and liberty in America, just remember the enemies of liberty are alive and well. They are few in number, but they have power. And we're not done fighting. It may look different, but we're not done fighting for liberty. It's a republic if you can keep it. So let's keep it. So happy 4th of July. Enjoy time with your family. And remember, it's a republic if you can keep it. So fight back, stay in the fight, and keep it. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.